Hey Carp Geeks. So, the first of its kind, I'm actually doing a reaction video of sorts to Mark Sawyer's Angling Times review of Impulse. Now, Mark did an excellent job. He got an 11-4 catch rate difference. And what I wanted to do was basically talk you through what he did right, and a couple of things that maybe could have even increased his catch rate more. So let's take a look. I'll be that guy sitting in the corner, and I'll pause the video from time to time to comment. But in the meantime, let's just watch the video and see what happens.
I met a doctor that told me that it was proven that he could double my catch rate. Don't think I'm telling the truth? Take a look.
So what Mark's talking about with the Sparsholt study was actually done some time ago now with a very early prototype of what is now Impulse. At that time we had a student complete his thesis, and you can check out aminotech.com for an actual copy of that thesis. Proved statistically and scientifically that yes, a better than doubled catch rate is achieved when using that particular prototype. Okay, since then of course we've and that was 2013 time. Since that time things have moved on pretty well, and we actually have a much more improved product these days, as you know, as proven by Mark really when he does his test. So yeah, let's keep going.
The feed stimulant I'm talking about is called Impulse by a company called BioSource, and BioSource is actually owned by Dr. Patrick Mills, who is a lecturer at a college in Michigan and has also done a lot of work with Sparsholt. I'm going to explain a little bit what we're going to do, because we're going to try and prove whether this stuff works or it doesn't work, but I'll just show you what we're going to do. I'm going to fish with two identical rods, and out there is Meadowlands. It's very hot again, and he's told me, and I spoke to him, we're going to go through the dosages and how you mix it. We'll do that, but he said don't fish them too close together, because if there's any undertow, the scent trail from the rod, and we're going to fish the rod on the left with the product, and the rod on the right will just be ordinary stuff, and we'll get into that. I'm going to fish one out there in line with that crane, and the other one quite a way away in line with that crane, at the same distance, same setup, same baits, same everything, except one of the lot, which is basically the feeds, which will be, I'm going to dose micros, will have Impulse on it. The rods are marked, and what we're going to try and do is try and fish for 10-minute sessions, and we'll see over time if we are actually getting more bites. That's the theory. In practice, I'm not sure if that's going to work, but I think I'm a cynical believer, you know.
Yeah, so Mark's test is perfectly set up, and I really encourage anglers, if you really want to try this and see for yourself that Impulse really does what it says in the tin and really doubles catch rates, is to follow Mark's procedure. Use two identical rods, fished well apart, one with bait dosed with Impulse, one with the bait dosed without, okay? And to get the details on how to prepare baits, Mark's going to explain that in a moment, but you can go onto our website, and I'll leave a link in the description, and you know, you can download a free user guide, so that's pretty helpful there. Okay,
There's no doubting that things like Impulse that contain amino acids do work, because chopped worm works on amino acids. You cut the worm out, it gives out the natural amino, and the fish are attracted to it. So this is the prep that you need. So what we've got here, Meadowlands fishery pellets, because we're going to fish micros on a method, so it's micros that we're going to use actually as the bait to see what goes on. It's got about, it's a pint, which is about, roughly, it's about 500 millilitres to a pint. And so basically one we're going to use with Impulse, the other we're just going to use as we normally do with lake water. So we put a pint in there, and we put another pint in there. Now there's just under 500 millilitres of water in that jug, and what we're going to do, we're going to add 5 of these in this nice bottle. You just squeeze it and you fill that, and the top of that holds 10 millilitres, so it's 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, number 5. And we'll put that straight on top of there, and we'll let them soak. Then we'll treat the ordinary micros just the same. So they're like that. So that's all the prep we're going to do. I'll let them soak in and drain it off.
So Mark did a great job of explaining how to prepare the impulse liquid for using pellets there. Simply, you use a 10% solution. So if you had 500 milliliters of lake water, pretty much like Mark did, you'd add 10% milliliters of impulse, which is, you know, with the dosing chamber being 10 mils, that's 5 shots essentially. Just, you know, prepare pellets in the normal way. 2 mil micros, as Mark is using here, are one of my actual favorite techniques. They work really well both on a micro method feeder and through a pole cup if you're into your pole fishing. So yeah, pretty good there, pretty good description by Mark, and he's doing a great job. So let's keep watching.
Okay, so I had the first cast. We're fishing exactly the same distance, which is around about 65 yards. Exactly the same, everything that you've seen, and we've hit the stopwatch. We've been in the water 30 seconds so far, so we're going to go in 10-minute periods. For fairness' sake, I've put 5 feederfuls on each line.
Don't want to be overcritical here, but Mark put in a little bit too much feed at the start. As explained in a recent more techie type video, you need to establish a threshold concentration in the swim, which is literally 1 big ball of ground bait. Mark put in a little bit too much bait and he actually overdosed the fish just a little, and as we'll see, when you overdose the fish they don't come immediately. So I won't spoil what's going to happen, but to be perfect, add 1 ball and then feed to response after each fish. That's the best way to fish impulse. And
then left it for 5 minutes before going in, and I've cast the blue rod first and the white rod second, and for fairness sake it'll be the other way round next time. But like I said, we're going to fish in 10-minute lots and see what happens, so on a sort of a points basis. But yeah, we've started, and nothing at the moment, and we've been in for a minute. Just for fairness' sake, each rod has got a white and a blue bit of tape on it. White is obviously, and there's the white bait, it's got the impulse in it, and there it is, that's its position on the rod rest. Just so, because I'm old and probably a tiny bit infirm now, it's just I don't forget which way round it should go. And also, that's the water that I'll just dampen down with the impulse in it, and that is just lake water. So far, we've 2.5 minutes, we've had a liner on the right rod, which doesn't have the impulse on. We've had nothing at all on the impulse, but it's early days yet. And it's the first bite of the session, and it's come on the ordinary bait, but I don't think it's a carp. I'm saying that that's a skimmer, which I don't know. We never really built in skimmers into the into the equation, but I suppose if it's a match situation, it's one skimmer that, you know, next door hasn't got if he hasn't had a bite. But yeah, it's a skimmer. Yeah, we don't like that particularly, wasn't what we wanted. So we never really built skimmers into this equation, but I think in fairness, what I need to do, that rod's out, let's take this rod out. This is the impulse rod, and we'll start the next 10-minute period again. So we've actually been fishing for 5 minutes, 25 seconds, and we've had a skimmer, but we'll stop that and then we'll start again. So we're coming up 7 minutes on the second period, which is cut short the first one by the skimmer. But let me tell you that impulse also do this gel. So I'm going to put a little bit of gel around the hook bait, and it's quite a sticky gel. And they also do a paste the same. I might even wrap a bit of that around the hook bait.
All right, so nice of Mark to mention the other products there. The paste and the gel are interesting because they're actually coatings. Okay, so you can, if you're particularly a big fish angler, you might want to coat your boilie in the gel or the paste. Paste is particularly well suited for fishing for barbel because you can wrap your bait in it and it'll kind of like wash off more slowly in the current, really. Okay, so yeah, thanks for that, Mark. Let's keep going.
I suppose smell-wise, I don't really know. It's like a yeasty sort of dirty sock sort of smell. It's definitely got its own sort of aroma, but it's subtle. It's not a blimey. It's not like that. It's quite subtle. So because it's obviously just to do with the aminos causing attraction and feeding stimulation. Anyway, we're coming up 8 minutes now. Let me just quickly tell you a little bit about what's out there. So we're fishing about 65 yards out. It's pretty much 6 foot deep across the two rods, and there's nothing out there. I would say that it's probably silt over clay, something like that. It's definitely not gravel. And the idea of coming to this venue with this is the fact that it is desolate out there. So the bait is actually the feature. So if I can get the bait in, and it's supposed to be little and often, it should be able to attract fish in, even though there's not a holding spot out there or an area that's clean and hard to present over. It's pretty much the same for both rods. And although this is not the best part of the lake, I think it's sort of the fairest for this sort of trial. Well, I think we're on the third period of 10 minutes, and what's been interesting is I haven't had a single registration on the Impulse yet. I have, though, had the one skimmer, and now I've got, is that another skimmer? Looks like an even smaller skimmer. On the non-Impulse rod. In fact, I think we can't really class that one because it's I think the bait's bigger than the fish. Five minutes, 20 seconds on the third session. I don't think on the fourth session. No, I'm not going. I don't think it's a carp. I think it might be a better sized skimmer, but it is the first fish on the Impulse. So I suppose really we're pretty much even Stevens at the moment, but with the little and often feeding, apparently the Impulse will kick in. So yeah.
Alright, so this is probably the most crucial piece of the video. It's been about half an hour since Mark started fishing, and he's had 2 skimmers on the non-dosed bait. Now, after half an hour, what's actually happened is his overdose amount of Impulse has diminished to the point where it's become optimally stimulatory, right? So I guess we can kind of predict what's going to happen. He's going to go on a run now of fish on the Impulse, right? That's the prediction, because he's now in what we call the kind of the Goldilocks zone. He's in the perfect dosage range for optimal stimulation. And I'll put up a graph here, and this is pertinent to a much more detailed review of this kind of like activity that I did in another video. And yeah, so Impulse does work within a defined, reasonably broad concentration window, but you've got to be in that window to make it work. So overdosing the fish at the start with 5 balls, that's why Mark had to wait half an hour. Okay, so the take-home messages, mentioned it before, literally 1 larger ball, about 3 mini method feeder falls essentially goes in first, and then again fish to response. And let's just watch Mark fish this out now and see what happens when he follows that routine.
Skimmer on that. Oh, not the desired species, I'm afraid. Still not the desired species, but on 8 minutes this time. But there does seem to be, there's undeniably more activity going on with it at the moment. And another skimmer comes in. Oh dear. I'm hoping that obviously the skimmers disappear and we do start to get a few carp, but we'll persevere. Oh, it's another. Just a very slightly bigger skimmer. I think I must have got the skimmer flavour Impulse here, because that's come 3 minutes after the last bite, and I'm sure a carp will turn up, but at the moment, for skimmers, the Impulse is absolutely smashing it.
Excellent point by Mark there. Impulse is actually a universal cyprinoid stimulant. So literally every British coarse fish is a member of the cyprinoid family, including bream, barbel, chub, tench, and of course carp. Mark is catching bream at the moment because that's what's in the swim. As we'll see in a little bit, he'll actually find some carp later on a spoiler closer line. But yeah, so it just goes to show that if fished correctly, Impulse universal attractant works for all the cyprinoid species. And depends when you watch this video, we're actually transitioning Impulse to more of a match based product in 2025, and we're actually bringing out, and it's quite exciting, species based attractants, and we do have one on the books which is in the final stages of testing, called Cyprophil Carp Lover, right? So it's really aimed at actual common carp, mirror carp, etc. Okay, so the more kind of commercial type carp and big fish anglers in particular will like that one. So Lee, let's continue and see how Mark does.
We've got big rain, and I've got, well, I think that's a hybrid, is it? I don't know. That is a hybrid. So I've got fish number 6 on the Impulse, so it's 6'2", and I think one of the issues is that location could be the thing. I'm getting obviously this isn't the chosen species. There's an awful lot of carp swimming around the margin, so I may see if I can come up with plan B. 7'2". I think sort of looking around, I think I'm going to have to put some feed in the margin, or close to the margin, and not right in the margin, but I say rod length out. I'm either an equal distance either side, and we'll try that, because whilst the Impulse is clearly winning the skimmer race, I still really want to know what it's going to do as regards carp. Well, it's definitely turning into a skimmer fest. That had been out there 47 seconds, and yet another skimmer. I'm going to carry on for a little bit longer. I have put a bit of bait in the margin now, but I don't know, I think because it's so hot, I think the fish have come in looking for a little bit of oxygen. There's normally more oxygen in the margins than out in a lake, and whilst there's a lot of fish on top, and whilst I'm sure I could catch on the zig or something, you know, I'm here to test the bait, and that's what we're doing. But the skimmers are turning into better sized fish, which is nice. But I would say well, there's no doubt about it. On this particular occasion, it's conclusive that the Impulse is out fishing standard micros.
So 8-2 with a bit of a slow start. So if you think about that in a match situation, you're literally a 4-to-1 differential catch rate at this point for skimmers. If Mark had kept going and feeding regularly, he would have sustained that for as long as the fish were there, essentially. In a moment, as he mentioned, he's going to switch to carp in the margins, and a bit of a spoiler, we're going to see a similar effect. So he's going to, once again, unintentionally, and I completely understand that this is what people do when they fish, right? But Impulse is a little different. Mark, unintentionally overdoses by putting in 3 massive balls of ground bait in the margins, right? But as we'll see, and I'll discuss it when we get there, there's a little kind of wrinkle that kind of really helps Mark out, and we'll see that when he gets there. So let's see what happens.
Oh, I thought I'd mention as well that right at the start, I did say that so I'm just looking for a disgorger. I did say that it hadn't really got any aroma, and it smelled a bit like, we thought, sort of yeasty and a bit like old socks. And as it turns out, what that is, it's actually, there are 3 different aromas of Impulse. There's fish, and that's what I'm fishing with, so that would explain why it is. But it's quite a subtle fish, and it is it's odorous, but it's not whiffy, if you know what I mean. But there's also a super sweet and a fruit. So there are flavours on the Impulse itself, but I've had another look at all of them. They are very subtle, but they are definitely flavoured. But I think that with pellets, why wouldn't you fish with a fishy sort of flavoured one? It seemed to be ideal, but I've only just realised that. Another skimmer that wanted the Impulse. I'll have the impulse for the impulse. Okay, because of the skimmer fest, what I've decided to do is I've fed 3 handfuls or sort of cricket ball size balls of pellets, impulse that side, plain soaked micros that side, and I'm just going to have a chuck and see which rod goes first. Hopefully we will get a carp. So blue rod's down there. It's about a rod length out from the bank. We won't tighten up to that. So that's a natural, no flavour in that side. And this side, just about a rod length out from the bank. Hugely frustrating, we have another skimmer. Well, what's quite interesting is that I've had a skimmer without impulse, and I'm now having another skimmer, which is exactly what happened out in the lake.
Yeah, it's history repeating, as they say. So, you know, that overdose 3 big cricket balls is currently in effect on the impulse line. And yeah, he's catching a couple of skimmers on the non-dose line, as just as he saw in the main lake there. But, you know, as they say, watch this space. You know, we're going to see some fish turn up on the impulse line pretty much as we saw earlier after about half an hour. So let's keep watching.
Basically, the non-treated pellet was quickly away, but the impulse took a lot longer, and it's much the same now. The same thing is happening. So that's 2 fish on the non-impulse, and not even a bite on the impulse. Although fishing-wise, if it were a match, I would fancy the right-hand margin more than I'd fancy the left-hand margin in this swim. But that's strange that that's followed exactly the same sort of pattern. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up to the car. I'm going to get a bigger, see if I've got a bigger hook bait in the car. I've been fishing with 8mm wafters, and see if that makes any difference, because the skimmers are absolutely slaughtering me. All right, so I've actually gone back to the car and I've put a bigger bait on. I've been fishing with 6s and 8s, and now I'm fishing with a 10. So I've got a 10mm bait on, and I've put the impulse rod in first. I've just actually got this one out the way. So let's just move that, because I feel we'll have an accident otherwise. So it's about, there's so many fish in the margin that had to come, but first chuck over the impulse, it's just absolutely melted off.
And there is the serendipity in action, right? So Mark went back to the car to get the bigger baits. Obviously took a little bit of time to do that. And when he got back, literally the impulse had dropped to the level where it was optimally stimulatory, and he was quote unquote straight in and it roared off, right? So, you know, there's proof in the pudding. So, you know, I keep stressing the point, but you can't overdose impulse. If you do, you got to wait until it kind of settles down and washes out a little bit. Okay, so it is a window. You have to put in at least 1 larger ball to achieve threshold concentration, and then regular small top-ups after that to keep it in the optimal zone, and at that point you're good. Okay, so let's keep going and see how many carp Mark can catch.
And although that's only 1 fish, that is 1-0. I mean, it's absolutely conclusive to me that for skimmers, they wanted it. But the strange thing happened on the margin, which was 2 skimmers on the normal bait without the impulse, and no bites at all on impulse. But then, now it's been a carp, which is, you know, obviously probably what the people from BioSource would have wanted. But I'm intrigued by it. If I were coming on a match, I would have some pellets or some baits definitely pre-done in impulse, even if it was a skimmer match, and I'd probably start off without it and then switch to it, because it seems to have taken a little while, twice now, to get going. I mean, it's probably because you've got to feed it little and often, but you know, I'm wondering if there's some way you could sort of swap between the two in a match situation. But you know, you have to believe me. You know, there's no smoke and mirrors with this. I have gone in 3 casts down the margin, and on the 3rd cast that wasn't out there. I mean, I didn't even have time to put the stopwatch on. That's gone off. Now I wanted it to be out there, but obviously I think the fish have got other ideas. But that is a pretty decent Meadowlands mirror. Well, I've started, because of how difficult it's become, I've started to swap around between 3 different lines, one off the end of the rod, one where we caught the other carp, and one long. And I've gone back long, and I've had another bite. It's on the impulse, and it's gone under the other line, so it's led me a bit of a merry dance. But that would make it, on a hard day, 2 carp on the impulse, none on the standard. But my butt is this: it sends the skimmers absolutely mad. I have caught an amount of skimmers since I've started putting it in, when the other rod's sort of been really quiet. But you know, I have now got a 2nd carp, so it's sort of 2 carp on impulse and none on the other rod. So I think it's always, there's always, you know, it can never be an absolute certainty, but you know, we haven't cheated it. And although there are, you know, if you're watching this, you'll go, oh well, it was always going to be that way, because there's no jeopardy in the video otherwise. No, you know, we played it straight, and I'm sure some of you are like, no, that's never going to happen. But you know, we have done, and it's been, you know, in truth, it's been a tough day. I mean, I've had much better days at Meadowlands than this, but it has been unarguably better with the impulse than without it.
Yeah, so Mark, you know, he's a legit guy, right? And he did a fair test. And we actually encourage anglers to do the same. 2 rods, one with, one without test. And literally, you know, 9 times out of 10, statistically, just from our test, you'll get a doubled catch rate or better. Okay, so, you know, don't take Mark's word for it. Don't take my word for it. Prove it to yourself. You know, just get a bottle. There are instructions at the website, and it's called the challenge. You can actually, it talks you through how to set it up and run it. But you know, do a true scientific test yourself, because that is proof positive. Okay, so give it a shot. Let's continue.
I would like to go to a venue with it where there are no skimmers and try it. You know, somewhere like Boddington or something like that. But I sort of proved its worth, and I shall definitely be carrying, oh, look at that, great big common. I shall definitely be carrying a couple of bottles in my kit from here on in. Act on impulse.
So that, as they say in the trade, is a wrap. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that video and got some good insight there into how impulse works in a match fishing situation. Again, try not to flog a dead horse. 1 big ball, regular small top-ups to response, and you will more than likely exceed your 2-to-1 catch rate differential. If you want to see, Mark mentioned it at the end there, impulse in action against some carp, I'll put a link right here. Check out the Carpology video, where they fish for larger carp using a more standard PVA bag method, and actually exceeded Mark's catch rate. They fished it perfect, and check it out, they got a 13-to-1 catch rate differential. PVA bags with similar pellets. Talking of pellets, since this video was filmed, and if you actually saw us at the Big One show in spring 2025, we've actually made now pre-dosed pellets. So those pellets Mark was using, he made, you can actually get now pre-dosed pellets in a bag, both 2mm and 6mm for both, you know, match and carp applications. So hope that wraps it up for you, and I'll see you guys next time.